Hey, just coming up to 5 past. We've still got a couple more people jumping on. Hopefully you can hear me okay on your end. So we've got Catherine there coming in from Gresford. Hello, Catherine and the team. Hope you're all doing well. Might be a few of you on here. I think Catherine is one who probably recognizes my voice and can now put a bit of a face to the name. So lovely to see you there. Cool. Got a couple more jumped on there, so I think we might start things off there. So yeah, thank you everybody for putting the time aside today to jump in. So the purpose for today's session is to unpack our performance plan and take a bit of a deep dive into what actually is behind the plan. So we've got a bit of a mixed bag today of customers and non-customers. So we'll try and keep it relevant for everybody and give a heap of information regarding both the features that are included there and some of the differences to the other plans we have, and some of the practical examples of how customers are using it on farm. So next slide, please, Stacey. Thank you very much. So here is a bit of an agenda of what we'll be looking at today. So to start off with, I'll give a bit of an introduction just to myself and a sort of brief top-level overview of AgriWebb. Next up, I'll pass on to Stacey Hogan, our Senior Product Manager here at AgriWebb. He'll be giving us a deep dive into the performance plan and some of the relevant features there available on the plan. We'll then be speaking with the AgriWebb customer, Hannah Russell from Grassbrook Pastoral. So Hannah is going to give us an insight into how the Grassbrook Pastoral team utilizing AgriWebb with their day-to-day operations. And then finally, we'll open up the floor to a Q&A session. So we're extremely lucky to have both Stacey and Hannah on the call with us today. So please add some questions in throughout the session if anything pops up as we're talking through. And then we'll try and cover these off at the end. I know Stacey in particular loves a curly question, so don't hold back on those. Next slide, please, Stacey. And I think yeah, there we go, perfect. So a bit of a top-level view of AgriWebb. Here's the mission we're currently trying to solve for. So to empower the livestock industry with the best tools to feed the world sustainably, profitably, and efficiently. So a bit of a big one. So yeah, that's kind of what we're taking a stab at the moment. And then next slide, please, Stacey. And then some of you who might have come to a couple of our webinars before might have seen this slide, but we're all pretty familiar with the paper notebook that sits in the top pocket. And this is essentially the problem we're trying to solve for. So at the moment, pen and paper is still the leading management tool for farmers globally. And I guess the main problem with that we're finding is there's a few things. So there's no backup of the data. We all hear of the stories of the notebooks going through the wash or ending up in a ute that's on a different block or something like that. Inefficiencies, multiple books, hard to share information between different people. And then specifically in relation to our performance plan, the biggest issue here with the manual record keeping is just around having quick and digestible insights into your data. So you might have 5-10 years worth of data in a diary, but if you want to know what's this paddock done over the last 10 years, 5 years, it's pulling that together. If you haven't got a really massive spreadsheet, it's going to be pretty difficult to pull anything useful out of it. So just before we rip into things, I just wanted to give a quick overview of our 3 plan types. So today we'll be digging into the performance plan, but just to give a bit of context around what these plans look like, and just a bit of view on sort of what producers they may suit. I'll just note as well, Stacey is going to give a bit of detail around the functionality for each plan, but just a bit of a top-level view from me. So our base plan is called the Essentials. So this is mainly around basic livestock records and visibility. So pretty much stock numbers, stock locations, viewing everything on the farm map, tracking jobs. So really ideal for operations with a bit of a low touch setup, might be large stock numbers and more of a pastoral style, just to get people aligned on where things are around the farm and start to sort of level things out. It's a good starting point for some customers, particularly if they've got a pretty low touch operation. The next level is compliance. So this is more around getting detailed livestock and paddock records and visibility there. And then with the reporting, there's a lot in there that ticks off compliance, so audits and things like that. typically that's a good starting point for a lot of people looking at moving to digital record keeping. And then the performance plan has everything in those first two, but also we've got a range of reports and tools in there that give you instant and digestible insights into the performance and production side of the operation. So typically, most people that are jumping onto AgriWebb have the view of getting to the performance plan at some point. So I'd imagine that might be the case for a lot of customers on here today, wanting a bit more of an idea of how they can get more out of their data. Or for new people jumping on board, typically if they've got quite a detailed system, spreadsheets or another software system in place, that might be a good place for them to jump straight in. So that's all from me, and I'll now hand over to Stacey to give a bit of a deep dive into the performance plan. Thank you, Stacey.
Thanks, Jack, and hi, everyone. Thanks for jumping on and joining us today. So the performance plan. There's a few areas that I thought we'd go through together in detail today. So performance grazing, fertility insights, and how we can start making decisions based on fertility records and fertility insights that we can get out of AgriWebb, weight insights, and financial reporting, and starting to understand cost of production, essentially. So really, like Jack said, the goal of the performance plan is starting to look at how you can improve the productivity of your animals, your pastures, and your general business. And these are the areas that I wanted to call out to show you some of the features and some of the tools that we have available to help you understand these areas and then make business decisions based on the information you're getting. So the first topic we'll go through is grazing. The key areas that I wanted to touch on today include the forage record keeping, some of the map insights we have available to help you make those grazing decisions, the reporting we have, and some additional integrations that are available on the performance plan. One of the really good things about, like Jack said, starting on compliance or another plan and working your way slowly towards the performance plan is all of your data is still being captured when you move animals, the animal load that you have in your paddock. So if you've been on AgriWebb for a couple of years and then you decide to upgrade, a lot of what I'm going to take you through today, particularly around the reporting, is all populated historically with all of that information that you've had. Obviously, the food records and that type of thing that I'm going to go through won't be populated, but all of your moves, stocking loads, and that information we have in the background, and we can start making that available. So number one, forage record keeping. So this is pretty straightforward, and this is just an example of what the paddock dialog that you have when you click on a paddock in a map would look like if you were to upgrade to performance or using the performance plan. So we have 3 additional records, and we can see on the right-hand side of the dialog here, we have feed on offer, which is a new record, which populates on the paddock dialog. We have the target minimum feed on offer. We default that to 1,000 kilos, but then you can update that at any time based on the minimum feed you want to remain in the paddock after grazing, and that's what helps drive days remaining and your available feed on offer. And then we have your available feed on offer, which essentially takes your feed on offer minus the target minimum feed on offer, if you've set that, and then adds the growth rate, essentially, if you've entered a growth rate record as well, to get your available feed on offer. So once you've got all of those records in and you're starting to record your FOO, your targets, and your pasture growth rate, then you can start taking advantage of some of the additional map insights that are available on the performance plan. So if you look down the bottom here of this insights dropdown, some of these are already available. Some of these top insights are already available on the essentials and compliance plan, but all of these grazing related insights, grazing days remaining, feed on offer, pasture growth rate, stocking rate, days empty, and days since grazed, are unlocked when you use the performance plan. So if we click over to the next slide here, what you'll see here is an example of feed on offer. So we have these great visualizations on the map for all of those key areas. So you can start to really visualize how much forage you have across the farm, how many days remaining. If I was selecting a different insight, it would show this same view, but with how many days remaining in each paddock. It's easy to identify if you're overgrazing certain paddocks. So you can start to really utilize those map insights to really understand all those different areas across your farm. The next thing that kind of takes us a step up in the performance plan is the ability to choose how we calculate DSE. So the default that we use for all customers is calculating DSE by age class, which you can see here, and we just use the MLA averages. But once you reach the performance plan, you have two additional options. So you can calculate DSE or whatever animal unit you're running on your property by body weight or by feed consumption. So if you select body weight, that essentially takes the animal's estimated weight and calculates DSE and load on the paddock using that, or feed consumption. So setting 3% of the animal's body weight, and we can calculate it that way. The additional record that you have around this is estimated daily gain as well on the performance plan. So if you are tracking those gains really closely and you have an estimate of the daily gain, you can enter that record against different animals and then start to track against how they actually perform based on the pastures that they're in and how they're tracking. So the animal body weight will use the estimate if you enter it, or the calculated ADG. Then reporting. So this is the big one, and this is the piece that essentially gets populated with all of the data you've been collecting from all of your moves over the years, if you've been on AgriWebb for quite a while. So first up is the paddock grazing intensity report. So here we're able to just see the kilos of dry matter produced in each paddock, the load, days grazed, days empty, broken down by paddock. So that one's quite straightforward. Then we'll jump over to the DSE load by paddock, and I'm going to just stop sharing the presentation for a second and just jump into having a bit of a technical difficulty. Jump into an example of the product just to take you through this, because this has a few different sections. So we've got a couple of different views here. We can look at the stocking rate, DSE per hectare, and then stocking rate per 100 mil of rainfall. So this is broken down per month and per paddock. So you can start to see all of those values over the year. And then we have the cumulative stocking load again. So this is a good one where we can start ranking our paddocks and see how much grass has been produced in each paddock. And then we can start, looking at ROI on pasture improvements and really understanding how those different pastures are performing over the year. So I'll jump back over now to the presentation. The final piece that kind of the performance plan unlocks in regards to grazing that we'll go through today is some additional forage estimation integration. So the key one that we've launched in the last 12 months is an integration with SIBO Labs. So what that does is SIBO Labs provide us with an estimate of total standing dry matter in a paddock. And then we can present that to you in the product, and it essentially provides an automated feed on offer number. We are working on, at the moment, it's not quite in yet, but then also a utilization record. So based on the number coming through from SIBO, the total standing dry matter, you can then indicate what the utilization of that total forage is. You can mark wastage there as well, or detachment, and then you can start to get that automated forage numbers coming through. And some customers find that really, really helpful. So next we'll move on to fertility. So a couple of things that I'll go through around fertility are some additional record keeping that we have available on the performance plan, using some of those records to make decisions during a live session, and then also understanding dam performance. So the first piece is these new fertility focused records. I won't go through all of these, but essentially a number of additional records for male and for bull fertility and for cow fertility. The same apply to, they're not exactly the same, but the similar records apply to sheep as well. Then you can choose to add any of these records to either a live session or as a bulk record in the product, and you'll be able to fill out those additional details and then be able to pull them up during a live session or when you're working with that animal to help make decisions around essentially make breeding decisions or cull decisions for cows. How some of that looks during a live session, particularly on this right-hand side one, is this animal has a lactation status applied, which was one of those new records that was on the previous screen. So when she comes through the crush, we're able to see, okay, she's wet and she's pregnant. So she has a calf at foot, most likely, and she's pregnant again. So then we can make a decision based on that. The opposite would be if she was dry and not pregnant, that would be two, as a northern example, but that would be two empties in a row essentially, and you may make a decision to, cull that animal or yes. So they're some of the pieces that are starting to come through, and that's obviously different depending on the records that you're collecting on that animal, and if it's a male or a female. Then finally, starting to understand dam performance in general. So the key piece here is we can look at all of our cows, our breeding cows broken down by management group if we want to. We've got a number of different bits of data that come through on this report, the number of exposures, number of pregnancies, number of times they're not pregnant, total number of offspring, that we can change the date pickup in the top right-hand corner. So you can be looking at this over a number of years or just the last kind of breeding period, number of offspring weaned, and then percentage of the cow's body weight weaned. So then we can start to rank the cows by their performance and make decisions based on that as well. What someone could do here is, based on this body weight weaned percentage, if you say wanted to look at every animal that was above 40%, we could select those animals from this report and add them to a management group, for instance. Then that management group, if we go back to the previous slide, that management group, which we can see in this slide, which is Kevin Cattle B in this case, but that management group would come through during the live session. So you could see these are my top performing cows. So then you can start to make drafting decisions based on that information that you're reviewing from these reports. Next topic, I know I'm going through this quite quickly, but just wanted to give everyone an overview. We can dig into anything at the end and we can ask more questions. Then we've got these great weight insights tools that can help understand productivity and profitability around different types and groups of animals, and which animals are kind of performing the best and delivering your business the best ROI. Here's an example of assessing different vendors. So we can see on the left-hand side here, we've decided to group these animals' weights by vendor, and we can see how those animals' weights are tracking. So obviously the Bush Creek vendor is performing and had better weight gains than JR Pastoral, and we can see that broken down in a number of different ways and starting to look at how different animals are performing. We can group this by a number of different things, by management group, by breed. If you have a number of different breeds on farm and you want to assess how those different breeds are performing. So that's a really helpful tool in starting to understand how your animals' weights are performing over time. Then if we get into some financial reporting, the report that I've got up on the screen here, and this is a lot of numbers, but this is our lifetime performance report. So essentially this report brings in all the information that we collect on an animal through their lifetime on farm, particularly related to purchase information, weights, and any costs associated with that animal, so treatments and those types of things. So we kind of start off here with the purchase price, and then the purchase induction. Here it's a purchase weight, but this could also be the induction weight or the birth weight, depending if it was an animal that you purchased or bred on farm. We can see the days on farm, the assumed average daily gain, which is that new record that I referred to earlier. That's what, if a record was added here, that's what we assumed that animal would gain every day. The actual daily gain, which we have here, lifetime ADG, estimated weight today based on their last ADG, and the last weight that was recorded, and the last weight date. Here, the total cost is empty because this farm hasn't been recording costs essentially associated with either feed, treatment, and miscellaneous costs. In the next example here, we do have costs in this column. So for example, there's feed costs here that are being linked back to each individual animal. So we can start to look at the cost of production essentially for each individual animal and how they're all performing. Again, this can be broken down as we can see here in this example, up in the top left here, 400 to 450 kilos. That's a management group that I've created. So here I'm breaking this down by management group. In the previous example, we were breaking it down by vendor. So we can start to see how different vendors are performing, different management groups, with all that data that's been collected on farm. I don't have an example here today, but another additional piece you can add here is the carcass performance results. So if you're working with and selling to abattoirs or processors that provide detailed individual carcass information back to you, you can actually import that back into your sale record. And then you can start to look at, are the animals that are performing well on farm also performing well at the processor? And you can start to look at that all the way through from on farm to performance of the processor as well. So that's something really helpful once you can start painting that full picture and really understanding performance and then being able to make decisions based on all of that information. And that's it from me. Ran through that pretty quickly, but I hope that was a good overview. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we can pull anything up and dig into it a little bit more if needed at the end of the session. And now I will hand over to Hannah.
I can get my technology to work. So I struggled trying to work out where to start all of this, but I think best is we have been a customer of AgriWebb since about 2021. We've been through lots of different profiles and subscriptions to get to where we are at the moment. But we are a family farm based out of Manila. It's about 40 k's from Tamworth. We run about 3,500 head of cattle, a few sheep, breeding a few horses, and a bit of cropping around the area as well. We are a multi-generational farm, so we're very blessed to have one of my grandparents is still on here with us, my dad's around, and I have younger and older siblings involved as well. My role in it all is lots of things. So I would best like to call myself a bit of a technology connoisseur, especially when it comes to AgriWebb. We've been very lucky with everybody that's been talking to us. It's a great company to work alongside and get us to where we need to be. I think if you go to my next slide, Stacey, that would be good. Okay. So this is a little bit of a picture of some of us that are working on the farm at the moment, which is a couple of my brothers and some other family members and a couple of other fellas that work with us as contractors or full-time employees. We are predominantly breeding Santa Gertrudis cows, but we have a bit of a mixed program with our Santa and Charolais. Each animal requires a different level of information and what they need to be reported on. We came on to use AgriWebb when we moved from a chicken farm into a bit more of our cattle. We knew we needed to be catering that a little bit better than our just everyday notebook, the classic AgriWebb picture. Having so many people involved as well, we needed a hub to put it all in. So, because there was a lot of notebooks that went missing and a lot of calendars that made no sense. There was a lot of overlapping and a lot of conversations that needed to be had that weren't. Can I go to my next slide, please? So just a little bit of a map of our place. We have about 6,500 hectares in 2 different irrigations. Most of these all run cattle. Some of it is the cropping as well. But we started out with the mob management, which is definitely a great starting point with AgriWebb. And it was a great way to learn what AgriWebb was about and what we could work together to get through to. So we are now on the individual animal management, but we'll be moving over to the performance profiles, especially after watching the slides from Stacey. That's definitely fulfilling a couple of questions that we've had and been happily working alongside to get to that point. One of the biggest bonuses for AgriWebb for us was their ability to work with lots of people. So we also work with FarmBot. We've got a few tank gauges, a few rain gauges in, and that's been really helpful. My dad, after being at the chicken farm, having to always check the chickens and you were checking weights on your phones and all of that, there's not a lot around or a lot had been explored. And when we found AgriWebb, it really solved a lot of those issues. So Dad frequently will sit on the lounge or in bed and check. He's always checking on everything. Running every part of our farm starts with AgriWebb these days. Checking the map to make sure that that paddock is free, to make sure that there isn't cows in that paddock, make sure that there is water going through the troughs and the tanks. It's covered a lot of issues and a lot of questions that we've had, and I'm sure a lot of other people have. We also worked with Tapari. So much like Gallagher, it is reads your EIDs and collects your weight, and that's been it's been a journey, but we've joined it up now in AgriWebb, and we get our weights automatically. When a cow comes in the crush, it's scanned automatically and its weight goes across. You've then got its history, and it has really smoothed up that process and given us a lot more information than what we used to have. It's probably a bit of a hard statement by a lot of people, but the world is tending to lean towards a digital way, and we are losing the paper and the paper just isn't cutting it anymore for a lot of people. So AgriWebb is really catering for all of that in every way it can. Might go to my next one, please. Thank you. I grabbed a couple of screenshots of our actual farm. So at the moment, this is only 6 of our enterprises within our farm. I think there was a couple of pages that I just collected, the ones that were useful. AgriWebb has a lot of space to provide and really think out everything that you want. Some of these mobs can be very small and some of them have got nothing in them at the moment, but it's really been a great way to lay that out. Like when we have meetings with all the boys or everybody that works for us at the moment, we can get that up on the big screen, jump into the whiteboards and writing this all up and just helping us keep it all together. We recently had an LPA biosecurity, or the LPA audits, and we had a really great response with working with AgriWebb. Our auditor was actually very impressed with the way that AgriWebb can keep all this information that's needed. There was very few things that we needed to actually add back in or provide to them separately. So that's definitely a big bonus to AgriWebb, the map and all the animal records that come along with that. They are going to cover you when you get to a point of an LPA audit. When we moved into this more intensive cattle breeding and looking towards doing stud breeding to create our ideal Santa Gertrudis cow, we realized that there was another hole in our program, and that was actually keeping track of all of this information. So I was tasked to find some way to put that in, and AgriWebb solved a lot of our problems with that. So we are recording weights 99% of the time our cows come through. It's very simple and it's very easy to keep track of, and it's helping with a lot of our reporting and working out our cows and what we're going to do with them. The conditioning scores and temperament scores, they're coming in really well at the moment. It's taken a lot of that trouble of, if you're coming back into a drought, what do you do with all your cows? How do you pick which ones to get rid of? We've really found that these condition scores, weights, temperament scores are helping with that and taking that personality out of it. You've got the information, it's in front of you, it's telling you what you need to know. So you just have to read it and record it. Somebody told us when we were very first starting out with AgriWebb that if it's not in AgriWebb, it didn't happen. And that's been one thing that we've really strived to keep going on our farm, that quite literally, if you don't put it in AgriWebb, it basically didn't happen. And it's not going to be recorded and you're not going to keep track of it. With our LPA audit, there's a part in that where you need to keep a bit of track of cows that have issues of any sort. So I just add a little grab down the bottom that one of my cows, she had a bit of wire around her leg, it sort of sliced into it a little bit. And it was another way for me to keep track of that cow. I knew that her tag number, so I could come back and check her later on. That's sort of a big drama, is not knowing if that actually happened, if that was something that did happen, and remembering which cow it was, because they all tend to look very similar. We have lots of ideas, and AgriWebb's been really great in funding and coming with us and listening to all our troubles. So my next slide, please. Yes, so our day-to-day has had a major change when we moved over from the chicken farm onto our cattle, predominantly onto our cattle. And this calendar and task list has been quite the lifesaver for a lot of us. So I grabbed a couple of snippets so you can have a little bit of a look at that. It fills up very quickly once people start realizing that they need to be, like if they put it in, it's going to show up. And it's been very good to keep track of what jobs we've got. Sometimes you'll end up with ones that aren't assigned to a person or aren't assigned to a deadline. It just keeps the farm working and running. We keep track of it a lot better if we know what's going on. And it's quite frequently that we'll drive around and you go, that gate needs fixing. I'm just going to throw that in a task. I'll remember to do it, or the next time someone's driving past, they can see that that gate needs doing. It's already been added, hasn't been changed. They might have 5 minutes, so they'll do it. The calendar, having so many people in our farm and running, we've actually been able to have a full view of it, which is also quite helpful, but it does remind you how busy you are and what's been happening. So that sometimes is a good part, but not so much other times. Another feature that we are really using quite well is the user profiles. So having so many different types or so many different people come onto the farm, there's not always a reason for everybody to have all your information. So some of our contractors, they just need the map. We frequently pull the map up and go, you need to be at this paddock, and they may not know where that is. So you can show the tracks and really round that up, make it a lot quicker than trying to explain past that tree, round that fence, through the gully, and you're there. It's definitely neatened up and made a lot of less people get lost. We really appreciate all that AgriWebb has. Really, they work with you, and that's the biggest thing that we have liked. They listen to every idea you have, and they're usually already on top of it, which is really nice. And it's just good. AgriWebb's grown with us, kept growing with us, and is helping for most parts of our farm, or every part that they can. There's lots of integrations and parts that they can help you out with. So I think, everything AgriWebb stands for this is really for the farmer. So I think that's sort of me.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It's so brilliant to hear like the practical uses of AgriWebb on farm. I think we, particularly in the office, obviously get caught up because we're just sitting in a little office in the city. So seeing how you're using it and how much of an impact it's had is really brilliant. And it's great to see how stuck in you've got. I mean, I can see you're definitely a bit of a super user. So really glad we could have such an impact. I think a lot of our customers probably feel they're not getting full value. So great for them to see sort of maybe areas they haven't seen, and for people looking into AgriWebb to see what it can do. It's brilliant. So thank you so much for giving some insight and taking the time out of your day.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on to a bit of a Q&A, but I'm going to be a bit selfish and ask some questions myself to start with, because I had, as you were talking through, and I was actually really interested. So it sounds like your business has grown quite a lot in the last sort of 3 years since you came onto AgriWebb. I was interested when you made the decision to move from those sort of multiple notebooks and manual processes. Was there sort of one deciding factor that made you sort of make the switch, or?
I think for us, it was a major push, mostly from Dad. So we were intensive poultry growing for Baiada and Steggles. So there's a lot of biosecurity regulations. There's a lot of information you need to keep track of. So sort of going from that and then coming more predominantly into our cropping and cattle, which had sort of taken a back seat. They were still there, but they weren't as intensive. We went, hang on, there's a hole. This is stuff that is eventually going to be asked of you. You need to be building it while you can, while we've got somebody that can do it. So that was the big push to go, righto, we need to get off our paper, and we need to be even away from our Excel sheets a little bit too, because that was there, and text messages and WhatsApp, but this definitely covered a lot more areas, and it provided area to grow as well. Parts that we may not have known we needed to grow into. So that was, that major push there.
Yeah, perfect. No, it's great to hear. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because you can start off quite basic with AgriWebb, and as your business grows and expands, we can sort of go on that journey with you. And in terms of the compliance side and the biosecurity stuff, that's only getting more strict. So it's great to hear when you said you did have an audit since you've been on AgriWebb, and it went well. So that is something we hear. And particularly with that, it's being compliant is not necessarily something that's going to improve or move your business forwards, but it's something that can take a week, 2 weeks out of your busy schedule to try and like go through filing cabinets and empty drums. So a good one to not have to stress about. And then I had one other question. So I noticed you've obviously got a few enterprises on there on your account, and there's a few things going on. How are you finding managing that in AgriWebb? And I guess prior to AgriWebb, was that sort of in notebooks and things? What did that process look like before?
Yeah. So since sort of, again, moving out of that chicken enterprise, we've gone predominantly into the cattle. So what used to be just 2 bigger, medium-sized mobs is now 4, 5, 10 mobs. So that really yeah, lined that up pretty well. We've actually been able to expand by using AgriWebb, utilize our properties. We've bought a lot more properties since sort of joining AgriWebb. So, establishing those farms and where to pot those cows based off the new land we have and the more mobs we have. So, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's brilliant to hear. I'll stop being selfish now and let some other people ask some questions. So we've got one in here from Catherine. So I believe this one will be for yourself, Stacey. So do you know when there will be the ability to enter estimated breeding values into animal records? Do we have a bit of an answer for that one?
It's not something we're working on at the moment. There is a little bit of a but there. We do have the observation record, which is actually what I showed during the presentation, where you can record lactation status and a lot of the bull fertility records. There has been some discussion around adding some EBVs that way, depending on what they are. But in terms of kind of full support, there's no plan for that. But if there's kind of a few specific values that you're looking for, pop them in the chat. Or if you're an existing customer, you can send them through to our support, because we have had some discussion around if there is some, basic support we could offer through that observation functionality that we have at the moment.
Thank you, Stacey. And thanks for the question, Catherine. I'll make a note to chat with our support team. We can follow up with you off the back of this and see what we've got.
Sorry, just off the back of that, what we have established, and we found there's a few things like EBVs where we're sort of just seeing where it's going to go. The notes feature, or adding a note to an animal or paddock, has been really good in that section. If there isn't an exact bit that you're wanting, because so many people want so many different things, we've found that the note feature is really great for that. You can always go back and find the notes that are on that exact cow, and that's really cleaned up. It sort of keeps it a bit neater in AgriWebb, so you've not got 40,000 categories that you can assign to one cow. The note feature really great for that while we're waiting to fill in some other features. Sorry, just...
No, that's great. And while you mentioned that, Hannah, it might be a good time to call out for any customers that may not have seen it. We did recently, in December, release a new notes report. So previously it was pretty difficult to actually report on those notes in a really easy way, but now you can bring up all of the notes you have on farm and sort them and filter them. So if you haven't checked that out yet, that's a good one to have a look at.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you both. So next question we've got here from Bruce. So can you integrate grazing charts into AgriWebb?
Do you want me to take that one as well?
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind, Stacey.
When we say integrate, I'm not 100% sure. We don't integrate with any third-party grazing charts at the moment. What we are doing at the moment is we do have a big focus on improving all of our grazing tooling for this year. The first thing that we're working on at the moment is a movement planner, essentially. So what you'll be able to do is essentially plan a rotation in AgriWebb. So there'll be a new almost record type where you can list out, a group of paddocks in order, note how many days the animals are going to stay in each paddock, note the number of rest days that you want in each paddock, and you can start to plan out those movements. That's kind of our very first step towards building out all of these more sophisticated grazing tools. The next step after that, which we haven't started yet, but is next in the plan, is building a full grazing chart into AgriWebb. So we're really excited to start working on that. It hasn't started yet, but that is currently in our roadmap for this year. I don't know if that fully answers your question or not. Pop any follow-up in the Q&A if not.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stacey. And hopefully, if there's a few customers on today, hopefully you have seen that we are upgrading and updating and bringing out new features over time. The grazing piece is one of our bigger projects that we're going to be focusing on. It's just obviously some projects are massive, some are a bit smaller. So it's just prioritizing the work, what we can get out quickly versus what's going to have a big impact. But certainly a lot of this, and pretty much all of this, is based on feedback from customers. So if you do have things you'd like to see or feedback, please do share it through with us. We do pass it on and stick it on the feedback channel here. And then if it gets more votes, it obviously bumps up the priority list for us. So we'd love to hear feedback. So there's no more questions I can see in the chat. Now, if there are any more, please do feel free to punch them through. Otherwise, Stacey, if you could pop to the next slide, there's just a bit of a finisher here. So I think if you click, it should bring through some extra bits as well. Or not. Well, thank you for joining our webinar. Oh, here we go. There's, I think there's one more. But yeah, thank you very much for putting time aside to jump on today. Now everyone's obviously got very busy schedules, so really appreciate it. And a massive thank you to Stacey and Hannah for jumping on and giving some detailed insights there. And a couple of notes to finish off. So everyone that's jumped on today, we'll be sending a recording of the webinar to your inbox. That should drop in this afternoon. Anyone who's not a customer at the moment would like to learn a little bit more about AgriWebb, you're able to book in a call or a consultation with us. We can take you through a bit of a tailored demo. I think with AgriWebb, it can be quite a broad product, so we can cover off quite a few things, and every operation's different. So if you want to see if it will suit exactly what you're looking for and what you'd like to get out of AgriWebb, we can talk that through with you and see if it will suit. And then the third point, so we'll be offering a 30% discount to new customers who are wanting to jump on off the back of this webinar, running till the 29th of Feb. And a note on that as well, so conscious there are a lot of customers on here, so thank you very much for jumping on. We have recently launched a bit of a referral program. So if you do have any friends or neighbors that you think could benefit from AgriWebb, we do have a bit of referral code that you can share with them. If they end up jumping on board, they'll get this 30% discount on the first year here, and you as a referrer will receive a $100 Visa gift card. So always a nice benefit there. And then a final note, as I mentioned, like feedback is a massive thing for us from our customers around the product, but also on these webinars. So if you could take the time just to let us know what you thought of today's webinar, what you thought was good and insightful, anything you'd like to see in future, or any different webinars you might like to see, we'd really appreciate it. And we'll hopefully be back on for another webinar very, very soon. And that is pretty much it from us. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll look forward to speaking to you very soon.